My brother boasted at Thanksgiving. I'm launching a restaurant with the $100,000 Grandma gave me. Everyone applauded. Grandma gave him $0. She gave me $890,000 to support your brother if he ever matures. He'd borrowed Grandma's signature. I smiled, said nothing. 3 weeks later, when police showed up at his grand opening, I swear that Thanksgiving dinner felt like a scene from a bad movie. My own brother, my own flesh and blood, announced he was opening a restaurant with money our dying grandma had left him, money she never gave him. And the worst part? Everyone clapped, while my little boy sat right there, invisible. What happened next? Well, let's just say the police got an invitation to his grand opening. It all started 3 weeks earlier, right there in my parents' dining room. We were crammed in, same as always. The table felt too small, the turkey was dry, and my mom had candles lit like we were shooting a commercial. My son, Noah, was next to me. He was wearing that nice sweater, the one that always scratched his neck, and he was quiet just like he always got around my family. He'd brought this little card he made for Grandma's place setting. Even though she'd been gone for 6 months, he'd written, "I miss you. I saved you a seat." He carefully slid it under her old napkin ring and smiled, like he'd done something profoundly important. My brother, Ryan, waited. He waited until everyone had food piled high on their plates. Then he stood up and clinked his glass. He didn't say a prayer. He didn't toast the family.
He didn't even mention Grandma.
He just grinned like he was on a stage and practically shouted, "Big news, everyone. I'm opening a restaurant." People actually gasped, like he'd announced a pregnancy. Then, louder, he added, "And I'm doing it with the $100,000 Grandma left me." The room erupted. Everyone clapped. My dad slapped the table and roared with laughter. My mom's eyes welled up like it was a Hallmark movie moment. My aunt, bless her heart, said, "Oh, that's exactly what she would have wanted." Ryan just soaked it all in, like the applause was his birthright. Then he reached into this shopping bag and pulled out 3 bright red chef hats, the cheap, bulk-ordered kind. He handed them to my sister's kids. "Junior kitchen crew," he declared. They screamed, totally thrilled, and jammed them on their heads. Noah's eyes, they flicked towards that bag. He didn't ask. He didn't reach. He just watched. Hopeful, in that heartbreakingly careful way kids get when they've learned not to expect much. "Ryan?" He looked right past Noah, like he wasn't even there. My mom saw it, gave me this little tight-lipped face, like, "Don't you dare start anything." Then Ryan dropped the real bomb. He said, "It'll be a family business. Real family, people who show up." And he smiled when he said it. Noah's cheeks went bright pink. He just stared down at his mashed potatoes, pressing his fork into them, over and over, like he could disappear into the plate. I felt my throat seize up so fast I could barely swallow. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to yell, "My kid is sitting right here." But I didn't. Because in that exact moment, with everyone clapping for a bald-faced lie, I finally understood what Ryan was doing. He wasn't just announcing a restaurant. He was marking territory. And my kid? My kid was the one he always chose to step on. So I smiled. I've spent most of my life learning how to just smile through it. I cut my turkey. I took a sip of water. And I said nothing. Not at the table. Not then. My name's Eric. I was 39 at the time. I lived about 20 minutes from my parents, in a small 2-bedroom townhouse that always smelled faintly of boxing hand wraps and laundry detergent. I coached boxing for a living. Not the glamorous kind, mind you. I trained teenagers who needed somewhere to put their anger. I trained women who wanted to feel safe walking to their cars. And I trained older guys who just needed a reason not to drink every night. I ran the early classes, mopped my own floors, even taped my own heavy bags when they split. Noah was 8, small for his age, quiet, incredibly polite. He lined up his pencils by color. He loved drawing menus on scrap paper, little lists of foods he'd just make up. He still called my gym Dad's workplace, like it was one word. His mom wasn't in the picture. That's the cleanest way to say it, without having to open up a whole other wound. It had been just me and him for years. My family? They loved to talk about how hard that must be. And then they'd turn around and treat Noah like he was a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. Ryan, on the other hand, was always the main character. If you asked my parents, Ryan had potential. If you asked me, Ryan had a pattern. He'd show up with these grand ideas and empty pockets. And somehow, I'd be the one plugging the holes while everyone called it helping family. It started small. Can you spot me 200 until Friday? Then it was, my car insurance is about to lapse. Then, I'm behind on rent, just this month. My parents were always involved, like a relay team passing guilt. My mom would call me with that soft voice she used when she wanted something. Eric, honey, Ryan's just so stressed. He's trying, you know how he gets. My dad would be more blunt. You're the responsible one. He needs you. And I was the responsible one. So I paid. I'd send money through apps. I'd write checks. I'd cover a bill and tell myself it was temporary. There was a whole year I paid Ryan's phone plan, his truck payment, and even his business course because he said he was learning management. That course turned out to be a weekend seminar at a hotel with free donuts. When Noah was 5, I still had a joint account with my mom. Years earlier, she'd helped me set one up when I was barely scraping by. She called it our family cushion. What it really was, though, was a funnel. Every time my parents needed a little help, it came from that account. Every time Ryan just needed a boost, it came from that account. I was the one putting money in. They were the ones taking comfort out. And the whole time they acted like I was lucky to be included. Noah, he noticed more than he ever said. He noticed how Grandma's house had framed photos of the other grandkids in the hallway, and none of him. He noticed how Ryan's kids got loud, big birthday parties at my parents' place, and Noah got a grocery store cake with happy birthday written crooked. He noticed how my mom would say, give Grandma a hug, to the other kids. But with Noah, she'd just say, oh, he's shy, like it was a character flaw. I kept telling myself things would balance out. I told myself Ryan would grow up. I told myself my parents would soften. I told myself Grandma saw the truth because Grandma always had. She was the only one who ever looked Ryan in the eye and said, stop lying. She was the only one who ever put her hand on Noah's head and said, you're a good boy. When she got sick, I was the one driving her to appointments. Not because I was some saint, but because Ryan couldn't get off work, which was a polite way of saying he didn't have steady work. And my parents were too overwhelmed, which was a polite way of saying it was easier if I handled it. I took Grandma to chemo. I sat in waiting rooms with a bag of pretzels and my gym schedule open on my phone. I paid for a ramp at her back door when she started using a walker. I didn't even tell anyone at first. I just did it. And I helped her with paperwork because her hands shook so badly. That's how I found out, accidentally, that Grandma had been dealing with Ryan's messes for years. There were old bank statements with overdraft fees circled in pen. There were notes in the margins, little angry reminders to herself. Ryan took $2,000 again. Signature looked wrong. Need to lock checks. The last year of her life, she started keeping her checkbook in a tin in the freezer. I'm not joking. In the freezer. Because she knew Ryan wouldn't look there. That's the kind of potential my brother had. A month before Grandma passed, she asked me to come over alone. No Noah. No parents. Just me. She sat at her kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, and slid an envelope across to me. I'm not asking you to open it now, she said, but I'm asking you to listen. I listened. She said, your brother will try something. I don't know what, but he will. She said, your mother will cry. Your father will yell. They will tell you to fix it. She reached for my hand, and her fingers felt like paper. Then she said, don't let them use Noah to pull you back in. My eyes burned. I nodded because I couldn't talk. And then she said the line that changed everything. I never forgot. I left you what I left you because you already pay for everyone. I'm giving you a chance to stop. I didn't know what she meant until after the funeral. The will reading was in a plain office, beige walls, a bowl of mints no one touched. Ryan showed up late, wearing cologne like he was going on a hot date. My mom dabbed her eyes the whole time. My dad sat rigid, jaw tight. Noah sat next to me, his feet swinging, clutching a little toy car. The attorney cleared his throat and started reading through the document. There were small gifts. A few cousins got $5,000. My aunt got grandma's jewelry. Then he got to Ryan. He paused, like he already knew what was coming. To my grandson, Ryan, he read, "I leave $0." Ryan laughed at first, a short, sharp bark, like it was a prank. But the attorney continued, "To my grandson, Eric, I leave $890,000. My mom made a choking sound. My dad's head snapped up. Ryan's face went blank, then red, then twisted like he'd been slapped. The attorney held up a separate letter.
"There is also a note," he said.
He read it out loud. "To Eric. Help your brother if he ever grows up." That room went silent. The worst kind of silent. Ryan's eyes locked on mine, like he wanted to climb across the table. My mom whispered, "She didn't mean that." My dad said, "That's not right." And I just sat there, with Noah's warm little hand in mine, and I understood exactly what Grandma meant. She didn't give me money because she trusted me to be generous. She gave me money because she trusted me to finally say no. After that day, my family story changed. In their version, Grandma had lost it at the end. In their version, Ryan was robbed. In their version, I was lucky, and luck meant I owed everyone. My mom started calling the inheritance family money, like it was a pot of soup we all shared. Ryan started dropping comments immediately. "Man, Grandma really did you solid," or "So, what are you doing for the family?" My dad didn't even pretend. He said, "You know, you have to help your brother now." Grandma put it in writing. He said that like a command, not a request, not even a discussion. And that's where the real pattern showed itself. Because it wasn't just that they wanted me to help. It was that they felt entitled to decide what help meant. To them, help meant I fund Ryan's life while my kid kept getting pushed to the edge of every single room. Ryan showed up at my gym one morning, leaned on the front desk like he owned the place, and said, "Listen, I'm not asking for much." He always started that way. Then he said, "I need 100 grand. I actually laughed because I honestly thought he was messing with me. He didn't laugh back. He said, "Restaurant build-out, equipment lease deposit. You'll get it back." I asked, "From what income?" He said, "From the restaurant, obviously." I said, "Do you have a business plan?" He just shrugged. "I have a vision." That word, vision, like I was supposed to clap. I told him no. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just no. His smile dropped. He leaned closer and lowered his voice. "You know what Grandma wrote?" he hissed. "Help your brother." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "When you grow up." He stared at me like he didn't know what to do with a boundary that didn't come with a lecture. Then he did what he always did.
He went around me.
He went to my parents. And my parents came to me. My mom cried on the phone. My dad showed up at my gym, cornered me near the heavy bags while teenagers pretended not to listen. "You're embarrassing your brother," he said, his voice tight. I wiped sweat off my hands. "I'm not funding him," I told him. My dad's face tightened even more. He said, "Then you're choosing money over family." I didn't answer that, because I finally understood the truth. They had been choosing money over me for years. They just called it family. And that brings me back to Thanksgiving. Ryan, standing in my parents' dining room, claiming Grandma left him 100,000. Everyone clapped like they were at a ribbon cutting. Noah, small and quiet, watching my brother hand out those cheap chef hats like status symbols. And me, smiling, saying nothing. Because Ryan didn't just lie. He lied with a specific number, a clean, confident number. The kind of number you use when you think you can back it up. And I had a sinking feeling in my gut that he thought he had backed it up. After dessert, while the adults drifted into the living room, Noah stayed at the table, tracing the edge of Grandma's napkin ring. I asked him if he was okay. He nodded too fast. Then he said, "Uncle Ryan doesn't like me." It wasn't a question. It was a conclusion. I swallowed hard and said, That's not your fault, buddy. Noah shrugged, like he already knew adults didn't fix things. Then he said, Grandma did. And that nearly broke me. Because Grandma wasn't here anymore, and I was still letting them make my kid feel like he needed permission to exist. I took Noah home early. I told my parents he had a stomach ache. It was easier than telling the truth. In the car, Noah stared out the window the whole way, quiet, shoulders tucked in. When we got home, he went straight to his room. I stood in my kitchen, looking at the fridge where Noah had taped one of Grandma's old handwritten recipes I'd copied for him. Grilled cheese. But do it with love, it said, in her shaky cursive. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and did the one thing I'd been avoiding, because I knew it would blow up my whole family. I called Grandma's attorney. The next morning, I sat in a small office again. But this time, it wasn't beige and polite. It was practical. The attorney, Mr. Feldman, slid documents across his desk like he'd been waiting for me to catch up. I'm glad you came in, he said. I told him what Ryan had said at Thanksgiving. The exact words. The exact number. Mr. Feldman didn't look surprised. He nodded once and said, We need to talk about a filing that came in 2 weeks ago. He turned his screen toward me. There was a document with Grandma's name on it. A request for an early distribution from the estate. $100,000. My stomach dropped. Mr. Feldman pointed to the signature. Do you recognize that? He asked. I stared at it. It looked like Grandma's signature if you squinted. But Grandma's signature had this certain wobble at the end. A small loop she always made, even when her hands were shaking. This one didn't have the loop. This one looked like someone had drawn her name the way they remembered it. I didn't say anything for a moment because I could feel heat rising behind my eyes. Then I asked, Did this go through? Mr. Feldman said, We flagged it. We held it. I wanted you to see it. He paused, then said gently, Eric, this is forgery. My hands went cold. I thought about Grandma hiding her checkbook in the freezer. I thought about her telling me, He will try something. I swallowed and asked, What happens now? Mr. Feldman said, That depends on what you want to do. I stared at the paper again. Then I thought about Noah at the Thanksgiving table, pressing his fork into mashed potatoes like he didn't deserve to look up. I thought about Ryan saying, Real family. And something settled in me. Not rage. Not drama. Just clarity. I said, I want to report it. Mr. Feldman nodded, like he'd expected that too. He handed me a card and said, Here's the detective assigned to estate fraud cases in your county. If you want to do this, do it clean.
So I did.
That was my boundary. One clean financial move. Not a speech. Not a threat. A report. That afternoon, I sat across from a detective in a small station office that smelled like burnt coffee. I brought the documents. I brought copies of Grandma's old signatures from checks she wrote to the utility company. I brought the note she'd written to me. I didn't add drama. I didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth. The detective, a woman with tired eyes and a neat bun, studied the pages. Then she said, Has your brother had access to her paperwork? I laughed once, without humor. I said, He had access to her whole life. She nodded slowly and said, Okay, we'll take it from here. She had me sign a statement. I signed it calmly. My hand didn't shake. I walked out of the station, sat in my car, and stared at my steering wheel for a full minute before I started the engine. Then I drove to pick up Noah from school. Like it was a normal day. Because for him, it needed to be normal. For once, I wasn't going to make my child carry my family's mess. The fallout started within hours. Like someone had hit a hornet's nest. My mom called first. I didn't answer. She texted, Call me. It's urgent. Then my dad. Then Ryan. Then my aunt. Then a cousin I barely talked to. By dinner, my phone was a blinking brick of missed calls. I fed Noah mac and cheese, the kind from a box, because I didn't have the energy to cook. He sat at the counter in his socks, drawing another menu on scrap paper. He wrote, Grandma's specials at the top. I watched him for a second and felt my chest tighten again. But this time, it wasn't helplessness. It was resolve. After Noah went to bed, I finally checked a voicemail. It was my dad. His voice was low, furious. "What did you do?" he said. "Your mother is crying. Ryan says you're trying to ruin his future. Call me back right now." Then my mom's voicemail.
Soft crying.
Then anger bubbling underneath it. "Eric, please," she pleaded. "You're taking this too far. He's your brother. You're supposed to help him." She didn't say, "Did he forge Grandma's signature?" She didn't say, "Is this true?" She didn't say, "I'm sorry Noah was hurt." She said, "You're supposed to help." That's what they always said. Like my role was a utility. Like I was just a function. The next day, Ryan showed up at my gym. He came in during a beginner class while I was holding mitts for a kid who was finally learning how to keep his hands up. Ryan didn't care. He walked right onto the mat like rules didn't apply to him. He got close and hissed, "Are you kidding me? Police over family money." I lowered my hands, told the kid to take a water break, and stepped closer to Ryan so no one else could hear. I said, "You forged her signature." Ryan's eyes flicked, just once, like his brain did the math and realized I knew. Then he did what he always did when cornered. He tried to charm his way out. He said, "I was going to pay it back." I just stared at him. He added, "You have almost 900,000, Eric. Come on." There it was. Not denial. Not remorse. Just entitlement. I said, "Don't come here again." His face twisted. "You're really going to do this?" he snapped. "In front of your kid?" And that was the part that made my hands curl into fists, even though I didn't raise them. Because he always used Noah like a shield. Like a bargaining chip. I leaned in, my voice low and steady. "Quiet. You already did it in front of my kid. At Thanksgiving." Ryan's mouth opened, then shut. He stepped back like he wanted to yell, but he didn't want witnesses. So he did what my family always did.
He left.
And he made me the villain somewhere else. For the next 2 weeks, my parents tried everything. My mom showed up at my townhouse with a casserole, like we were playing pretend. I didn't let her in. She stood on my porch and whispered, "Just fix it, Eric. Just give him what he needs and make it stop." My dad sent a long text about loyalty and blood. Ryan sent messages swinging between pure rage and fake sadness. One day it was, "You're dead to me." The next, "I can't believe you do this when I'm finally trying." My aunt called and said, "Your grandma wouldn't want this." I almost laughed, because Grandma had literally warned me this would happen. Noah started having trouble sleeping. Not because he knew details I didn't tell him, but kids feel tension like weather. One night, he came into my room, his blanket dragging behind him, and said, "Are we in trouble?" I pulled him close. "No, buddy." He said, "Uncle Ryan's mad." I swallowed and said, "Uncle Ryan made choices. That's not on you." Noah nodded, like he wanted to believe me. Then he whispered, "Grandma would be mad, too." And I said, "Yeah, she would." 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Ryan's grand opening happened. He'd rented a small storefront in a strip mall near the highway. The kind of place that used to be a sandwich shop, then a nail salon, then sat empty with a faded for lease sign. He slapped a new name on it, something dramatic with the word kitchen in it. My parents were acting like it was the second coming. My mom texted me that morning, "Today is a big day. Don't be cruel." My dad texted, "If you show up, behave." I didn't respond. I wasn't going to fight, not to gloat. I didn't want Noah anywhere near that place. But I did drive past. Not because I wanted revenge. Because part of me still couldn't believe my brother would set a grand opening date when there was an active fraud investigation. It felt like watching someone build a house on sand and then act surprised at the tide. I parked across the lot, far enough away that no one would notice my car. The restaurant had balloons tied to the railing. There was a little red carpet runner leading to the door, like he was opening a movie premiere. My mom stood out front in a dress she'd probably bought just for this. My dad was shaking hands with people like he owned the place. Ryan was near the entrance, grinning, hugging someone, playing the role. And I'll give him this. He looked happy. He looked like a man who truly believed he could fake his way into a new life. Then 2 police cars pulled into the lot. Not speeding, no sirens, just steady, certain. They parked right in front. Ryan's grin faltered. My mom's hand went to her chest. My dad stepped forward, like he could stop the world with authority. One officer got out, then another. They walked up to the entrance, asked Ryan his name, and I saw Ryan's shoulders shift. He tried to laugh. He tried to do that charming shrug. But the officer didn't smile. He pulled out paperwork. Ryan's face changed. It wasn't anger yet. It was fear. The kind of fear that shows up when you realize the story you told isn't going to work anymore. People started whispering. Phones came out. My mom was saying something too fast, too high, like if she talked enough, she could cover it all up. My dad looked like someone had punched him in the gut. Ryan tried to step back inside. The officer stepped with him. Then another officer moved to his side, like they'd done this 100 times. And right there, under his grand opening banner, in front of everyone who'd clapped for him at Thanksgiving, my brother was handcuffed. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. And I felt a strange, quiet sadness that my family had spent so long protecting a man who would steal from a dying woman and still demand applause. My mom turned and looked around wildly, like she expected to spot me, like she expected me to jump out and fix it. I stayed still. I watched for a moment longer, then put my car in drive and left. That night, my phone exploded again. My mom called, sobbing. My dad left a voicemail that was mostly shouting. Ryan's wife texted me a string of insults, and then, somehow, a plea. This is your fault. Please tell them to stop. Like I had summoned the police out of spite instead of reporting a crime. My aunt sent a message that said, "How could you humiliate your mother like this?" That one hit me for about 2 seconds. Then I remembered Noah's face at Thanksgiving. I remembered my brother saying, "Real family." And I typed one sentence back to the group chat, the family one I'd been muted in for years. I won't fund a family my kid isn't part of. Then I turned my phone off. The real consequences weren't just legal. They were personal. My parents didn't come by for weeks after that. Not with casseroles. Not with speeches. They were embarrassed. And in my family, embarrassment mattered more than harm. Ryan's restaurant never opened. The balloons stayed tied to the railing until they sagged. Someone took down the banner after a couple of days. Probably the landlord. My mom tried one more time, a month later, to slip back into my life like nothing had happened. She showed up at my gym during a quiet hour, holding a bag with Noah's name on it. Inside was a chef hat, a nicer one than the cheap red ones, and a little notebook that said recipe journal. She smiled like she'd solved it, like this was a fix. I stared at the bag and felt something harden in me. Not cruel, just finished. I said, "You watched him get left out, Mom." My mom's smile wobbled. She whispered. Ryan was excited. It wasn't about Noah. I nodded once. "That's the problem," I said. She started crying. Quiet, controlled. Then she said the line I'd heard my whole life. "We're family." I looked her in the eye and said, "Family doesn't use me as a wallet and treat my kid like an afterthought." She flinched like I'd slapped her, but I didn't raise my voice. I handed the bag back. I said, "Take it with you." Her mouth opened. I added, calm, "You don't get to buy him back with a hat. It's been a long road, and my life looks a lot different now. But I know I did what Grandma intended." I finally stopped. "What about you? Have you ever had to draw a line in the sand with family, even when it felt impossible? Or maybe you've been Noah, feeling invisible?" Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.